Some books tell the story of a single family, and other books, they tell the story of a whole nation. Well, this book, it does both. We're diving into Sujata Gidla's Ants Among Elephants, a memoir that uses one family's hidden secret history to unlock the epic and often brutal story of modern India. Right from the start, the author hits us with this powerful idea. Think about it. What happens when your own life, your family's experiences, are so defined by shame and oppression that you can't even tell them as a story? It's just life, a reality you have to endure in total silence. And it's this silence that the author decides she has to break. So to really get this story, we've got to start with the author herself had to start when she moved to America and people started asking questions. We have to tackle this huge central question. What does it actually mean to be an untouchable? Well, the exclusion is just incredibly absolute. It's a system of hereditary duty, basically a role you are born into, and there's no way out. People who were labeled untouchable were seen as so ritually unclean that they were physically walled off from the rest of society. I mean, forced to live outside the village, completely barred from temples, and not even allowed to use the same water. Now, for a lot of us outside of India, the immediate comparison we might make is race. But Gidla points out this really crucial difference. Unlike race, which is often visible, caste is invisible. It's hidden, revealed only through your name, your village, the way you might dress, or even if you eat beef. But here's the kicker. You can't escape it, because in India, anyone has the right to ask your caste, and you have to answer. Your entire life is your caste. And this question, this gets right to the heart of the author's dilemma. If telling your family story, your real life, means revealing your caste and inviting ridicule, harassment, or even violence, what do? Well, you lie. Or you just stay silent. This book is her decision to finally speak up. And the story she uncovers is, well, it's absolutely astonishing. And her story begins, believe it or not with shame, but with freedom. We go all the way back to her great-grandparents, who weren't even part of the Hindu caste system to begin with. Okay, so the family's journey into this identity was just devastating. The author's ancestors were a self-sufficient, nomadic people living in the forest. But then the British came and cleared those forests for teak plantations, forcing them out onto the plains. They settled new land, started farming, but then they got tricked into these impossible debts by local landlords who just stole their land, piece by piece. Just think about that. In only a couple of generations, they went from being a free people to landless laborers, forced into the Hindu system at the absolute bottom. So after the men of their village were all unjustly arrested, a little glimmer of hope appeared from the most unexpected place. It wasn't the government, it wasn't local society, it was a group of Canadian Christian missionaries. And they offered not just help, but the promise of an education. Now, for people who were literally forbidden from learning to read and write, this was revolutionary. This was a chance at a whole new life. But they were about to find out that, yeah, you can change your faith, but changing how society sees you, that's a whole different battle. And at first, it really did seem like a miracle. The author's grandparents, Prasanna Rao and Mariama, they jumped at the chance. They embraced Christianity, they got an education, and they became teachers. They started wearing respectable clothes and earning a new sense of dignity. It looked like they were the generation that was finally breaking free. But then, this. This quote just lays out the brutal reality. It's Christmas Day, and Mariama wears a new sari into the village. And the local upper caste men, they weren't just annoyed, they were infuriated. How dare an untouchable woman wear decent clothes? It was this horrible, toxic reminder that education, a new religion, it meant nothing if the old prejudices were still there. Their new status was just a fragile illusion. And this simmering injustice, this constant humiliation, it becomes the fire that forges the book's most central figure, the author's uncle, Satyam. His personal tragedy and his political awakening really mirror India's own struggle for freedom. I mean, Satyam's childhood was just shattered by one tragedy after another. First, his mother dies. Then his heartbroken father just leaves him and his siblings. And then, in this cruel, twisted echo of his mother's own humiliation, he gets violently beaten by a higher caste boy just for the clothes he's wearing. These things don't just make him sad. They make him hard. They fill him with this deep, burning sense of injustice. So, as all of India is boiling over with the Quit India movement, this massive push for independence, Sachem looks at Gandhi's famous call for nonviolence and just rejects it. It seems way too passive for the brutal world he knows. So instead, he's drawn to more militant figures like Subhash Chandra Bose, who basically argued that you have to take freedom by force, not ask for it politely. And this is where his journey as a revolutionary really begins. Satyam's personal story now smashes right into one of the most incredible and forgotten uprisings in all of Indian history, the Telangana armed struggle. And to get it, you first have to understand the almost mythical, unbelievably unequal kingdom it rose up against. The contrast here is just staggering. At the very top, you have the Nizam of Hyderabad, who was literally the wealthiest person on the planet, living in just unimaginable luxury. Get this, his pearl collection could fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and he used the world's 5th largest diamond as a paperweight. A paperweight. And at the bottom, fueling all of that insane wealth, was a system called Veti. And what it was a system of forced, unpaid labor, where everyone, potters, weavers, barbers, was forced to serve the local landlord for free whenever he demanded it. It was, for all intents and purposes, institutionalized slavery. But the most monstrous part of it was this. Every single untouchable family was required by law to surrender their firstborn son to the landlord's fortress. And there he would live and die as a household slave. This isn't some ancient myth or a folktale. This was the reality in Telangana in the 1940s. A system this brutal just seems unbreakable, right? But the rebellion that would shake it to its very core didn't start with an army or a great leader. It started with the unbelievable courage of one poor peasant woman named Ailama. And it all kicked off with just one single act of defiance. Ailama simply decided she was going to harvest her own crops for her own family. That's it. But when the landlord's thugs came to take it from her, her fellow villagers stood with her. The landlord's men opened fire, killing one of them, but instead of scattering in fear, the villagers just erupted. Their cry, blood for blood, became the spark that ignited a massive peasant uprising that spread across thousands of villages. Which brings us right back around to the title of the book and to the author's original search to understand her family's unspoken life. The title is such a perfect metaphor. Her family members, Ailama, Sachem, Mariamma, they're the ants. They seem so small, so insignificant next to the massive elephants of history. The British Empire, the caste system, the Nizam. But this story isn't about being crushed. No way. It's about how the ants survive, how they resist, and how when they work together, they can actually make the elephants tremble. And so we end right back where we started. By finally telling her family's story, Sujata Gidla transforms what was once just life, a source of private, hidden shame, into public history. And it forces all of us to ask, how many other histories are out there, hidden in plain sight, just waiting for someone brave enough to finally tell them?